After 30 years of marriage, he planned the perfect retirement party. The guests thought it was a night of celebration until the truth came out. In the middle of his speech, he exposed a decade-long betrayal. What happened next left everyone in shock, her in tears. The night was supposed to be a celebration 3 decades of hard work, dedication, and loyalty coming to a close. The grand ballroom of the Lakeside Country Club was bathed in soft golden light, the air thick with the scent of fresh roses and expensive champagne. Friends, family, colleagues, they were all there, dressed to the nines, their faces glowing with admiration and respect. And at the center of it all stood Edward Callahan. 62 years old, salt and pepper hair neatly combed, a tailored navy suit hugging his still impressive frame.
Okay.
To everyone in that room, Edward was the embodiment of the American dream. A man who had built his wealth from scratch, who had led Callahan and Brooks Real Estate to become one of the most respected firms in the Midwest. A husband, a father, a pillar of the community. But Edward's smile wasn't quite reaching his eyes. As the evening wore on, laughter echoing, glasses clinking, people giving toasts filled with fond memories and well wishes, Edward stayed patient, polite, calculated, because tonight wasn't really about retirement. It was about revelation. Beside him, his wife of 30 years, Linda, looked radiant. Champagne-colored gown, diamond earrings catching the light, her hand occasionally resting on Edward's arm, her laughter chiming softly. To outsiders, they looked like the perfect couple, the picture of longevity and devotion. And there, not far from them, was Richard Brooks Edward's longtime business partner and his oldest friend. He was laughing too, sipping his scotch, mingling with guests as if he had no idea that his entire world was about to crumble. But Edward knew. He knew everything. The affair had started, by his calculations, approximately 10 years ago. It wasn't hard to piece together after he found the first set of emails playful, then intimate, then downright explicit.
Okay.
Linda and Richard had grown careless over the years. Hotel receipts, burner phone messages, whispered conversations that didn't quite vanish into thin air. For months, Edward had sat on this knowledge. He played his part, went to work, came home, ate dinner, slept in the same bed as the woman who had betrayed him, shaking hands daily with the man who had stabbed him in the back. But now it was time. The master of ceremonies tapped his glass with a spoon, calling for quiet. The DJ dimmed the music. All eyes turned toward Edward as he took the microphone, clearing his throat. "Good evening, everyone," he began, voice calm, composed. "First off, let me thank you all for coming tonight. It means the world to me to be surrounded by friends, family, and colleagues as I celebrate the closing of one chapter and the beginning of another." A gentle wave of applause rippled through the room.
Case.
Linda beamed beside him, her hand resting on his back.
Chaos.
"I've spent the last 35 years building Callahan and Brooks," he continued.
Chaos.
"And I couldn't have done it without the incredible team we were without my business partner, Richard." Richard raised his glass with a modest smile. To Ed, he called, prompting another round of claps. And of course, Edward added, glancing sideways, I could never have done it without my wife, Linda. 30 years of marriage, 30 years of unwavering support. At least, that's what I thought. There was a subtle shift in the air. A few polite chuckles, some furrowed brows. Edward smiled softly. But as we all know, life has a funny way of surprising you. Sometimes, the people you trust the most are the ones holding the knife. A murmur. Linda's smile faltered slightly, her hand slipping from his back. Before I truly retire, Edward said, voice tightening, I think it's only fair I leave this room and this chapter of my life with the truth. He reached into the inner pocket of his suit and pulled out a small stack of glossy photographs. He held them up, letting the nearest guests catch a glimpse before placing them on the podium. There were gasps, sharp intakes of breath. Linda's face went bone white. Richard's glass slipped from his hand and shattered on the carpet. The images, each one crisp and damning, showed Linda and Richard together in various compromising positions. Hotel rooms, beach getaways, private dinners. The evidence was undeniable. The ballroom erupted in shocked whispers. I know, Edward said, voice almost tender. This is hardly the retirement speech you were expecting. But the truth matters to me. It matters deeply. Linda's hands trembled, her lips parted, but no words emerging. 10 years, Edward continued. 10 years of lies. 10 years of betrayal. While I was building a legacy, while I was providing, while I was foolishly trusting, my wife and my business partner were building something of their own. Tears began to well in Linda's eyes. Richard looked like he wanted the floor to swallow him whole. And the funny thing, Edward mused, is that I probably would have kept pretending. For appearances, for the sake of our kids, for the comfort of routine. But something snapped in me. Maybe it was the thought of waking up every day in retirement next to someone who never really loved me. Maybe it was just dignity. The room was dead silent. I'm not angry, Edward said quietly. I'm free. And with that, he set the microphone down. Linda reached for his arm, her voice a desperate whisper. Edward, please. He pulled away. Oh no, he said gently but firmly. We're done. He turned toward the crowd. Thank you again for coming, everyone. Enjoy the food, the drinks, the music. And Richard, he glanced at his former friend, whose face was blotchy with shame. Best of luck with the company. You'll need it. And then Edward walked off the stage. The next few minutes blurred into chaos, murmuring, Linda collapsing into a chair in shock, Richard storming out red-faced, people unsure whether to stay or leave. The carefully curated illusion of a perfect life had shattered into jagged glass. But Edward felt light, lighter than he had in years. He exited the ballroom, the night air cool against his face, and for the first time in decades, he wasn't playing a part. He wasn't a husband. He wasn't a partner. He was just a man at the beginning of something new. 2 weeks later, the ripples of the retirement party reveal were still spreading. Callahan and Brooks dissolved. Edward had sold his shares to a competing firm within 72 hours. Richard's reputation was in tatters. Investors pulled out, clients left, the board forced his resignation. He went from a multimillionaire CEO to a pariah almost overnight. Linda, she tried to call, tried to text, emails, letters. Edward ignored every single one. He filed for divorce the Monday after the party. The prenuptial agreement they'd both long forgotten about back when they were young and poor left Linda with almost nothing. Their 2 adult children, upon learning the truth, sided with their father. They were disgusted, hurt. They visited Edward often, checked in on him, offered their support. Linda, meanwhile, was left in the hollow wreckage of the life she'd chosen. As for Edward, he bought a lakeside cabin 2 hours out of the city, quiet, peaceful, surrounded by pine trees and the soft sounds of nature. He woke each morning to the sunrise over the water. He brewed fresh coffee. He read novels he'd never had time for. And every so often, he'd get a call from an old friend or colleagues, someone who had been at the party. They'd ask how he was doing. Better than ever, he'd say, and he meant it. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't about anger or destruction. It's about freedom. It's about standing in the ruins of what once was and realizing you survived it, and that the best part of your life might just be the one you get to write for yourself.